It's 6 o'clock and we are going straight to Paris, where the vote of confidence against the current French Prime Minister, the fourth Prime Minister in little more than 2 years, has taken place, and Prime Minister Bayrou, Francois Bayrou, has lost the confidence vote in the National Assembly and will now need to tender his resignation. The votes 419 for the motion, 364 against. So he has become the fourth Prime Minister under Macron in less than 2 years, and they will now begin the search for a fifth. Francois Bayrou losing that vote of confidence in Paris. Let's bring in our Europe correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, who is there. And Alistair, well, this was widely predicted. The opposition leaders predicted it. Journalists were predicted it. Widely expected. Macron has lost another Prime Minister.
Yeah, Mark, I said when we last spoke that it wasn't the result that was in doubt. It was going to be the size of the loss. And just to reiterate those numbers, 194 French MPs voted on Francois Bayrou's side, but 364 voted against him. That's a majority of 170. So it wasn't even close in the end. It was predicted this way. And even Francois Bayrou, frankly, when he came into the chamber around 3 o'clock this afternoon to kick off the debate, the confidence motion that he called in himself, even he acknowledged that it was something that he was going to lose. He put forward economic reforms that he said were absolutely essential to stop France falling off the edge of a cliff, but they were economic reforms that were too big and going too quickly for not just parliamentarians but the French public to stomach. They didn't like it. It was deeply controversial. Nobody seems to have a popular alternative, but the one thing that the National Assembly has been able to agree on in large numbers is that Francois Bayrou can no longer remain the country's Prime Minister. He will remain in office in the interim, albeit with very reduced powers, whilst Emmanuel Macron, the French President, finds his replacement yet again, the fifth Prime Minister that will be serving under the French president in 2 years. It just underlines the kind of political crisis that France is in, and it is in a political crisis because of its economic crisis. Bayrou was threatening perhaps IMF intervention if nothing was done to try and reform France's economy, but in the end his opponents believed that he was scaremongering, that would not be the consequence of voting him out of office. We'll see who turns out and proves to be correct. There are some rumours doing the rounds in French political circles that Francois Bayrou, knowing that he would lose this vote, wants a tilt at the presidency in 2027, and he wants to be able to say to the French electorate, you know, I told you so. I was the one that warned you we were on the brink of economic collapse. You need to now trust me and make me your next president. Well, that is for the future. His immediate days in the weeks ahead are that he will leave office, and we will see who Emmanuel Macron finds to replace him. There'll be a question mark over who actually wants to do the job, given the political deadlock, given the, well, you might say the almost certainty of failure. As one Macron loyalist told me today, though, you'll always find plenty of people who want to be appointed Prime Minister. So I'm sure Macron will find someone, but will that person be able to breach the divide between left and right, bring people to the centre and bring people to agreement on what kind of economic reforms can be pushed through the Parliament?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It would be Macron's fifth Prime Minister in 2 years, and the question is where he goes to find that next Prime Minister. And I've just been talking to the former ambassador to France, Peter Ricketts, who said that he felt that he may look to the centre-left this time.
Well, I mean, the socialists would like it to be someone from their ranks, but, you know, they gave a pretty scathing speech during this debate against Macron's record, so perhaps, you know, they don't believe that Macron would choose them this time. I mean, if he were to go down that route and choose a socialist prime minister, well, he risks them being in power and undoing many of the policies that Macron himself has introduced during his 8 years in office. But, you know, he might conclude that it is now time to give them a chance, and they might be the best route forward. You know, I spoke to a senior socialist politician last week when I was here in Paris, and I said to them, you know, what is your alternative then? Because pretty much everybody seems to agree that economic reform of some description is needed. It's the extent of that reform that is in debate. And they said, well, look, you know, we would propose a budget with around half the savings that Bayrou proposed. Bayrou was wanting about 44 million euros. The socialists say we would do about 22 million euros, and they would go at it much more slowly over a longer time period. So, you know, maybe that is something that could find some more common support. I think it's probably more likely he'll stick to someone more loyal, someone more close to him politically. The Armed Forces Minister, for example, Sébastien Lecornu, is perhaps one of the favourites to get the job this time round. Quite a quiet figure, but believed to be politically pretty effective. Also manages to speak to a number of sides in this. So, you know, that is Macron's choice now. He's got no real good choices. And increasingly, as we've been discussing all afternoon, increasingly this predicament for many actually underlines the lack of credibility that Macron himself now has to remain as president. And there is a growing voice within French political circles and France itself that the only way through this deadlock now is for the man at the top, is for the French president Emmanuel Macron to leave office. He's refused to do so, but certainly he is running out of options.